D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, David James here with you. Willie Donick expected to join us later in the program.
Yes, he will. You know what? I want to start something new.
Okay.
You know, that I think we should do.
Sure.
And hopefully it catches on.
Okay.
That we should do at the beginning of each show.
I'm on pins and needles.
One, quickly, Hillard, heating and plumbing company came to my house today. Great. I love the guy. I love the guys. I love the company. Great. Because they've been out a few times and they usually come in there prompt. So they came this morning. That's why I was kind of the dilemma, man. Am I coming in? Am I going to work at home or am I going to come in the studio? And I finally was like, just forget it. I come to the studio. So the guy comes to the door. Hey, Mr. Mason, how you doing? Here, Tyler, work on your air conditioner unit. I was like, okay. I said, so, because I know kind of what he needs to do because it keeps cutting off for me. So I said, so, and this was like at 9 o'clock. I said, so Tyler, how long will this take? And I'm thinking maybe an hour and a half, Adam, at best. And I'm like, okay, I can leave at 10:30 and I still make the show, give myself at least, 10 minutes, kind of relax. Tyler said, well, Mr. Mason, this is going to take a minute. I said, oh, how long? He said, well, 6 hours. I said, what? He said 6 hours. And he started explaining. I was like, I said, okay. All right. I'll make sure that someone's at the house when I leave. So if you have any questions or anything else, you can talk to them. So McCall's going to come down. She's going to stay at the house while I'm here at work. But the second thing, I think at the beginning of the show, each and every day, I think, and we need to remind ourselves of this, I think we need to, tell our listeners what we're thankful for, whether it's them, whether it's David, whether it's you, Adam, Willie, Emily back there, she's working. What are we thankful for? It could just be one thing. It could be a couple of things. I just think that gets the show off on a good note. Because it kind of, okay, what am I thankful for? I am thankful that I work with such wonderful people. That's what I'm thankful for. That we care about one another and we check up on one another. That's what I appreciate that. That's what I'm thankful for.
Today, I am thankful for the antibiotics that will hopefully make my son's ear infection go away so he can finally go back to school. Infection. It was an ear infection.
See?
Or is an ear infection.
I'm a parent. I parent kids that age. Arlo's age, yeah. I even told him he might have to get tubes.
Kid needs to go back to school.
Arlo, you need to go back to school.
But it's time to go back to school.
Time to go back to school.
Get your little butt back to school.
David, what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful that God woke me up today. Like
there
always.
We go.
Praise God.
Emily, you back there. You're going to be a part of this too. What are you thankful for? Come on, get on the mic.
She's a little shy.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's just anything that you're thankful for today.
She said the vending machine right now.
There we go. That's it. Hey, she's thankful for that now because she probably didn't eat breakfast, so that's kind of like her breakfast a little bit.
The vending machine was replenished last night.
It was.
I saw when they were replenishing. Look at it. She jumped up and she started clapping.
What's funny is when you walk into the break room and the vending machine is near empty and you see what's left. Clearly, this health food thing, nobody wants it.
We want to be healthy, but when it's staring us in the face, it's like, nope.
The candy bars are out. The chips are out.
All the good stuff.
But those dried cranberries are still available. Nobody wants that.
And it's supposedly healthy.
Supposedly.
Yeah, there we go.
That's the key. That's the key.
Exactly.
Term. So tonight, we could crown the Stanley Cup champion. It could be the Florida Panthers for the second year in a row. Game 6 of the Stanley Cup final tonight at 7. Stuart Skinner starting for the Edmonton Oilers in Game 6. We'll see how that goes. The NBA Finals last night, the Oklahoma City Thunder are 1 win away from an NBA title as they defeat the Indiana Pacers. And there's one thing that I learned yesterday about the NBA. They are easily persuaded by their fans. They succumb to peer pressure again.
In what way?
Well, yesterday I saw on X, Shams Charania of ESPN tweeted that for the first time since 2013, ABC will air, I guess, I don't know if it was ABC who did it the last time, but it was for the first time since 2013, they will air the introductions of the starting lineups in the NBA Finals. I guess fans were complaining about that they didn't air the starting lineups. And
because nobody knows these players on these two teams.
As front office sports rights, off the court, ratings have dipped, as we've discussed, and fans have bemoaned a lack of pageantry. The move to air the intros and add a digitally imposed Larry O'Brien Trophy logo to the court shows that the league is plugged into the online discourse about its product. That's one way to put it. Again, I say succumbing to peer pressure. As front office sports notes, the trophy logo was removed from finals courts after 2009, and fans have complained every year since. Now, Adam Silver, commissioner of the NBA, mentioned that the logos were slippery, and players were complaining about that. So they added them virtually, and it did not look good. So this is one thing I've learned about the NBA, and specifically NBA fans. I feel that NBA fans of the 4 major sports in our country, the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NHL, NBA fans are the most stuck in the past. And what I mean by that is NBA fans are the ones who yearn for the NBA of yesteryear. Nothing is as good now as it used to be. Think about this. The NBA is going back to NBC, right? They're bringing back the iconic theme song, Round Ball Rock. And not only that, the announcer, whose name is escaping me right now, unfortunately, who would announce, it's the NBA on NBC. He's been dead for several years. They are going to use an AI-generated version of his voice with the family's blessing when the NBA returns to NBC. And don't get me wrong, I love Round Ball Rock. Who doesn't love that, right? But I feel that NBA fans, more than any other sport, major North American professional sport, they love how it used to be versus how it is now.
I think that's mainly older NBA fans.
Okay.
Because I know, as I'm a big NBA fan, I like the product now. I do wish that they would have the finals logo on for the NBA Finals. I do agree with that. I think that's fair. But I think a lot of that is more older players because you see, or older fans, because you see a lot of them complain about it's not like the 90s. Like you look at Joe Rexrode, me and Joe Rexrode talk about that a little bit, like where everyone would complain that the 90s was so much better and all that. So you would see more older fans who are like in their late 30s now and 40s complain about how it's not as physical anymore. And I think that's what you mainly see is the older fans, not necessarily the younger ones or a lot of different fans.
So the Larry O'Brien Trophy on the court thing, like that is not something I would ever possibly care about.
No.
Obviously I'm more tuned into what the NHL is doing because hockey is my favorite sport. I've covered the sport for a long time. There used to be, inside each team's zone, the logo would say Stanley Cup Final. There would be a little picture of the Stanley Cup and then the words Stanley Cup Final. As far as I know, that no longer exists because the NHL is selling ad space. And sometimes fans will complain about, man, I really wish the Stanley Cup Final logo was on the ice right now, but I haven't heard any of that during this series. So it feels to me like complaining about how the Larry O'Brien Trophy logo is not on the court, it seems silly to me. I'm not going to tell all of you who don't think it's silly to complain about it that you're silly for complaining about it, but it seems silly to me. So I just feel that NBA fans, they love the league of the past. They want it to be like the past, but it's not the past. And that's just this vibe I get. I have no statistical measure to back this up, but maybe baseball is this way. Now, baseball is a blind spot to me. I'm not a huge baseball fan, so maybe baseball fans are like this, but I feel like hockey fans, for example, football fans, I feel like they don't complain about this stuff as much as NBA fans do.
I think from a football standpoint, I think fans are more sort of they're more accepting in regards to rule change. They may fuss about it for a minute, but then they adapt. That's what has kept the NFL as the top sport, because not only has and listen, the NFL has its faults, and I talk about it a lot. I think the NFL is more reactive than proactive. But one thing that they have going for them is that their fan base changes with them. Like the fan base, they're not sitting back like, I wish the game was like it was, 15 years ago. Why? They're not saying that because there's so much more scoring. There's so many more records being broken. There's so many more highlight plays that you can watch now and see just about every week that you wasn't getting those back in, the 80s, at least not to this magnitude in a sense. So I think football fans look at it as our product has gotten better all around. Yeah, we may fuss about the quarterback not being able to be hit at all, but it just depends on which fan base's quarterback got hit. It's if my quarterback got hit late, it's a penalty. We need to protect the quarterbacks. But if I hit him late and I get a penalty, why are they doing this to the quarterbacks? But NFL fans eventually they adapt and they just go along with the sport. Basketball fans, it's going to be this ongoing debate. And you know why it is this? Because no one will ever supersede Michael Jordan. That's why it will always be, I love back in the day when they were playing. Why? Because of Michael Jordan, really. But then you got Bird, you got Magic, you got guys like that. But really, it's one guy. And they don't see LeBron like they saw Jordan. So they always refer back to, man, I wish they would go back to the days of Michael Jordan and how physical the game was and this and that. When in actuality, the game is physical now.
Again, talking about hockey fans, for example, you don't hear any hockey fans saying, man, I long for the days of the dead puck era, which was in the mid 90s to mid 2000s, pre-salary cap.
Where you ain't getting no scoring.
Right, where there wasn't a lot of goal scoring, a greater emphasis on defensive play. That wasn't exciting. I mean, I love hockey. I still watched it, but the game today is in a much better place.
Exactly.
And I do think that, to your point, Derek, and we did talk about this recently, that there isn't that quote unquote face of the NBA or those faces of the NBA. When you could just say one name, Michael, Kobe, Magic, Larry. There really isn't that player or players right now in the NBA. So when I saw this yesterday, how so many people were excited about the NBA airing the starting lineups for the NBA Finals, I said, great. Okay. Like, I'm good for them, I guess. But I just think that the NBA and the NBA's fans, more so than any other major North American professional sport, they love back in the day more than football fans, more than hockey fans, more than baseball fans. Again, I do have some blind spots. So if I'm missing something, you can call us, text us 615-737-1025. Devin and Dixon says, Adam clearly doesn't know NASCAR fans. There is no other fan base more stuck in the past than NASCAR fans. Ask Chase.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I will ask Chase. But yeah, I can't say I watch a whole lot of NASCAR. Yeah. I was having this conversation with David Janes a couple of weeks ago. I don't understand how NASCAR fans choose which driver to root for. When I was a kid, I rooted for, if I was picking, I didn't watch a lot of NASCAR, but I would pick the driver who had the coolest sponsor. So it's like Jeff Gordon, his main sponsor is DuPont. I don't care about paint, but that guy has an Oreo on his truck. I love Oreos.
He got McDonald's. He got the arches.
Yes,
right, that's my guy.
Right. Like Ricky Rudd, who was a popular and successful NASCAR driver. He was from the area I grew up, and I believe his main sponsor at one point was Tide laundry detergent. I was like, I don't care. I don't wash my clothes. Sorry. Nevertheless, maybe my mom likes him because she does all the laundry. Even though I am now the laundress of our house. I do my laundry, my wife's laundry, my kids' laundry. Anyway, I just think that, and look, I love vintage NBA too, especially the look, right? The jerseys, I love the stuff that you can buy that looks like the old stuff. But I just think that NBA fans, they yearn for yesteryear more than any other.
Do you think that NBA, the new NBA fan, let's say anybody that was born after 85, 85, 90, let's say 90. Do you think the new NBA fan, because if you look at baseball, I think even the new baseball fan appreciate the older players and appreciate the history of baseball. I think hockey, like true hockey players, like fans, the base, they truly care about like the old school. It's not like they want to go back, but they appreciate the history. I think football fans are the same way. They appreciate the history. Do like younger fans, and it could be across the board, it could be in football, I don't know. But do the younger fan appreciate like the history of the NBA?
To me,
because if they do, they would understand like, hey, listen, our game is great, and it's because of the older guys that made it great that we are able to sustain it and make it better. Because if you ask a guy or a girl in their 30s, who is this player, they'll look at you like who is Bernard King? They'll look at you like, what? Bernard who? Is he Ken the Burger King? No, he played for the Knicks, okay? He was one of the best players ever. Probably the best Knick ever, or at least one of a top 3 or 4.
Has to be the best Knick ever.
But do the fan base, like the newer fan base, just appreciate, the NBA? I'm talking about the history of the NBA. I
think there's a small group that does that, but I think a lot of the times what they see is they see a lot of older NBA fans, or even older NBA players complain about the game, and they complain about saying all these guys are soft. I think when they see that, they're like, well, look back at what your time was. You guys didn't have the 3-point line. Y'all are only good guys on your team. Were like there was only a couple of good guys on your team. Like everyone, they would say everyone in the NBA right now could dominate back in the day. And I think it's a little bit of back and forth between both fan bases. I think both fans are older and younger fans need to be more appreciative of what the game is. But also I think a lot of it is just the younger fans don't understand how good Kareem was, how good Wilt was, how good Bill Russell was.
Yeah, they may be basketball fans. They may have the most inner fighting amongst any sport.
For sure.
Like the old versus the new. I don't see it in football. I don't see it in basketball. In baseball. I don't see it in hockey, where the fan bases are going at one another and the players are going at one another.
I also think it's just because how much ESPN talks about the NBA.
Yeah.
I think just because it's so well rounded in the NBA and ESPN realm where we see it every day, you have an opinion about the NBA because of that.
One texter says, I highly disagree with you, Adam. I feel the NBA has faces. Stephen Curry and LeBron James are international superstars. That is true, but they're getting older.
Yeah, they're fading out.
Right. They were the faces of the NBA. There, however, is a new generation. And I don't think those players, who those players are going to be, has really emerged. But let's continue this conversation because we have a lot of reaction. 615-737-1025. Again, the NBA, in my opinion, succumbs to peer pressure. Fans wanted them to play the starting lineups before the game started on ABC. NBA says, sure thing. Logo on the court, we will put it on there virtually. I just think that NBA fans, more than other fans of major professional sports in our country, they love the nostalgia. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This week's Nashville's best deal is Body Rock, plank, lunge, twist, and push your limits with Body Rock's dynamic muscle sculpting Pilates-inspired classes designed to rock your body to the core. Get half off a $50 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals to use at any of Body Rock's 4 Nashville locations while supplies last.
Song that we like to call Round Ball Rock. Now, it started as one of David's poems here, but then it just grew into something bigger than both of us could ever imagine. It's me on keys and Dave singing.
Can you believe this is our job? All right, fire away.
All right, ready to do this?
Yes, I am.
All right, 2, 3, 4.
Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it. Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it. Basketball, gimme.
There's some round ball rock for you.
Oh, yeah.
That was from an old SNL skit when Tim Robbins, who people know from the Netflix show, I Think You Should Leave. I think that's what it's called. He was on SNL for, I think, like 1 year. And that was one of my favorite sketches from that. Just round ball rock. People love round ball rock. I absolutely get that. And the reason I bring this up is, as I said in the previous segment, for the second time during the NBA Finals, the NBA bowed to pressure from fans. First, it was the logo on the court, and last night it was airing the starting lineups before the game between the Pacers and Thunder. And once again, I think that NBA fans, when I say stuck in the past, what I mean is they long for the NBA of their youth. And I don't get the sense that other sports fans have the same issue. Again, the sport that I am most tuned into when it comes to this stuff is hockey. And I don't feel that it exists in hockey. Maybe it exists in baseball. I don't think it exists in football. So one point that's interesting that David brought up during the break about the idea about the face of the NBA. The NBA has not had an American-born player win MVP in 7 years. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who won it this year, is Canadian. Jokic won it a couple of times. He's Serbian. Joel Embiid won it. He's Cameroonian. Giannis won it a few times. He's Greek. I'm wondering if that plays into it. We know that the NBA is an international sport now. It's beloved all over the world. I'm wondering about if, because there's not Kobe, Michael, LeBron is getting older. I'm wondering if the fact that the game has taken on that international flavor and international players have dominated the MVP award for the past several years, I'm wondering if that plays into it as well.
Well, it does, because the NBA has changed the All-Star rules now. It's going to be the American, it's going to be Americans versus the world, in some form or fashion. I think that's going to be the name of it, but it's going to be the U.S. born players versus those that are born outside of the U.S. So the NBA sees it and they understand it. And, what made it even more evident is when these other countries started to get closer and closer when we played them in the Olympics. It didn't become a surefire, the NBA is going to win.
2004,
exactly. Not anymore. The same players that are superstars in your league are superstars in their country, and they're going to help, their country defeat you, because these guys are used to you. They know you. So to me, the NBA, because they don't, it's almost like the NBA is the American-born players are the big brother. And if you had a big family, you know what I'm talking about. As you start to have more children, the big brother seems to become sort of like the forgotten person, or the big sister, the forgotten person, the eldest sibling. Why? Because you're paying more attention to the younger ones now. And now the older ones kind of feel like, what's going on over here? You're not showing me enough attention. That's the NBA. The NBA is starting to show more attention to the foreign-born players than they are to the players. Why? Because they see the play, they see the superstars that they have in their own league. And if you, outside of, like you said, outside of LeBron James and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, and they are aging out, everyone else, the next like 3 or 4 are foreign-born players, whether it be Canada, Serbia, Cameroon. They are players from other countries. The NBA sees it, and I think the fan base sees it. The fan base wants it back to where it was Michael, Magic, Bird, these elite American-born players dominating. And right now, that's just not the case.
I would like to issue a correction. I confused Tim Robinson, the comedian, with Tim Robbins, the actor.
Yeah, okay.
My bad. My bad. For you fans of Shawshank Redemption. So one texter says, Josiah from Clarksville. I hate the argument the older fans have that no current player, it seems, in any sport will ever be as good as the greats of the past. It's as if they refuse to see how great some of the current players are. And this is something that we as sports fans, we love to do. If you took Michael Jordan in his prime and you plopped him into today's NBA, how good would he be? Right? And it's an interesting question. I do think that Michael Jordan would be an outlier. I think that Michael Jordan was such an amazing basketball player that he would still be an amazing basketball player in today's NBA. But most NBA players, the ones that you love the most, Joe Rexroad always brings up his beloved Bad Boy Pistons. You know the Bad Boy Pistons. Yep. Do you think that most of those players would succeed in today's NBA?
Let me see. Isaiah, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman would. John Sally would be a role player as he was for the Pistons. I think those four guys would succeed in today's NBA. Outside of those four guys, and we're talking about the Bad Boy Pistons, Rick Mahorn. We're not talking about the second iteration of the Bad Boys with Chauncey Billups and those guys.
Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace.
Exactly. We're not talking about that iteration of the Bad Boys.
But Bill Laimbeer. Bill
could have played in today's NBA. You know why?
You think so?
For this reason. Because Bill is sort of a Jokic type player. He can't jump, don't run fast, but he got a hell of... Bill Laimbeer was one of the first centers shooting three-pointers. He was one of the first centers shooting three-pointers. Go watch Bill Laimbeer. Watch him. He's not a household name if outside of the city of Detroit or the state of Michigan. But watch Bill Laimbeer. His game would apply to today's game. Why? Because bigs are shooting three-pointers. And that's what Bill Laimbeer did. He shot three-pointers. He didn't have a low post game. He played defense, really good defense. He hacked the hell out of you. And he got a few rebounds. But he was a hell of a shooter from outside. He was a good shooter for a big. I think Bill was about 6'10", 6'11". But he was excellent. And no big guys were shooting from the three-point line as much.
I also think that ESPN doesn't help itself when it comes to bringing in those casual fans. And I don't watch a lot of NBA pregame, but looking at the NBA pregame show on ESPN, it basically feels like an extra episode of First Take. How can we get Stephen A. Smith mad and yelling about something? The one thing that, to be fair to those of you who yearn for the NBA of old, the NBA on NBC, and I felt like did, if I recall correctly, they did a great job of letting you get to know these players. Turn on any NFL pregame show. What do NFL pregame shows do best other than having 15 people on set laughing at their terrible jokes? It's fluff. It's fluff. You'll get an 8 to 10 minute story about a top player and his story, where he grew up, how he came to be the player he is, how important his family is to him, all of those things. And the one thing that I learned as a sports writer is fans love when you humanize athletes.
Yes.
Let the fans know who this player is. Let's look at Tyrese Halliburton, for example. Tyrese Halliburton has had an amazing NBA playoffs, has been hitting clutch shot after clutch shot after clutch shot.
Not last night.
No. But what do we know about Tyrese Halliburton? We don't know a lot about Tyrese Halliburton. I remember reading, I believe it was Ramona Shelburne on ESPN, wrote a story recently about the friendship between Tyrese Halliburton and Caitlin Clark, because Caitlin Clark also plays in Indiana. Talk about, no pun intended, a layup for ESPN for a pregame story. Here you have Tyrese Halliburton, who's been the breakout star of the NBA playoffs. You have Caitlin Clark, who, as Jared talked about yesterday, when Caitlin Clark was out with injury, WNBA ratings plummeted. Now she's back. They're back up. Talk about an easy story to get fans invested. Tyrese Halliburton, Caitlin Clark. And humanizing those players, giving fans a reason to care about them other than the fact that they're playing well. That's how you sell the game. I think most pregame shows do a good job of this. I don't think ESPN has done a great job of this, and they have people on staff who can do this. So we've talked about how this is a small market NBA Finals. Indianapolis and Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
There are a ton of great players on both of these teams, but none of them are household names, right? Sell them to us. Tell the casual fan who is tuning into the NBA for the first time why I should care about these guys, other than the fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander won the MVP award. How many casual fans know that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is Canadian? Probably not very many. Like, it's about selling that. I think that would help. Let's go to Pat on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Pat, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you guys were talking about the era and about how certain people they talk about, well, this guy was better and how that would translate to the game today. Well, to me, that's always been kind of a dumb thing, because at the time, in the era, that's a great ball player. And, like today's player that's coming through the system, they're a lot better educated in the game because of guys like you and because of ESPN, but also they're coming through a travel system that was not in place when, like, the Michael Jordans and those guys were coming up. So you got kids coming out of high school now that are as good as college players were 20, 25 years ago. So, I think and you're talking about certain great players. I think those guys shined in an era where now you have tons of great players coming out of and being dumped in the market. So they're not as definable maybe as they were back in the day when you had the Jordans and the guys like that. So I'd like for you guys to comment on that.
Thank you for the call, Pat.
I look at and this is why, and you're right. The caller's right in regards to, these players are so much more advanced at a younger age than they were, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, let alone 20 and 30 years ago. So when you look at them, it's like they have, there are more advantages for that athlete out there. Now it's going to cost you. I understand that, but there's more things that, like, if I want to become a better jump shooter, there are like 100 things that they can, that we can do, drills that we can do to make me a better jump shotter or a better free throw shooter or a better ball handler. They weren't thinking like that. Not everybody was thinking like that, 20, 30 years ago. But this is why I say that, listen, whether you want to take the guys in this era and plop them, 30 years ago, or take the guys 30 years ago and plop them in this era, this is the one thing that I think people are forgetting. If you're just saying, I'm just taking that player and he's going to skip the whole 2 or 3 generations of developing and everything else, if I plop them in today's game, it's going to be hard for them to adjust. Absolutely it will. Even Michael Jordan, it would take them hard. Now, Magic and his teams, they may be able to adjust because they were running gun anyway. They were upstream and shooting and all this other stuff anyway. But when we say those guys in the 80s, they couldn't play or be, well, yeah, because you skipped like 3 generations of development and then plopped them in there and said, well, now you don't have the advantage that they have, but you got to play them in the game. Well, who's going to win? They are. But I guarantee you, if I take Bird, Magic, Jordan, Barkley, Isaiah, any other Akeem Olajuwon, if you allow them to go through the same system that the LeBrons and everybody else went through, I guarantee you, yeah, they would be able to dominate in today's game because they have the same advantages that you have. That's just like the NFL. If I had all of the advantages that these guys have now, then yes, I would be able to, for sure, hell, I could play in this era no matter what, but I would be way more advanced just because of the medicine and the sports medicine and all this other stuff. that they really pay the analytics, all that stuff that they pay attention to now. So I would be able to play in today's game, just like the basketball players in the 80s would be able to play right now.
615-737-1025. We will continue to take your thoughts on the NBA and nostalgia. Again, I just feel that NBA fans, more than NFL fans, more than Major League Baseball fans, more than NHL fans, they want the product they used to watch versus the product that they're now watching. 615-737-1025. We will continue to take your thoughts on that. But coming up next, we continue our best case, worst case Titans edition, as we started yesterday with Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons. We will continue that today, starting with Tony Pollard. And we'll get to Tony Pollard coming up next. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. This is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some solutions because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. I could talk about it because I've been through it. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you something that I haven't been through. So I suggest and I hope that you go to Cool Springs MD and connect with Dr. Lodge today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
with Pollard today, as you reflected on his first year here, anything you want to change with him as far as workload and as far as how many carries he has? Does that pretty much depend on his health or other factors?
Yeah, I think he's battling the second half of the year quite a bit, but I think in a perfect world, it's a healthier division of labor. I think he ended up carrying the ball a lot. He was our most productive running back, and then Tajay had some injuries early too, so he ended up playing a lot early, and then Tajay sort of came on as the year went on further. So I like really both of those players a lot. I think we can do a better job of managing that load so they both play a little more evenly, and allows us to maybe have a spot for a third back between Julius and Khalil, some heavier style back and runner. So hopefully that division of labor gets a little more evenly distributed so he doesn't have to take the brunt of it. And we can get 17 games out of all those guys at their best.
That was Brian Callahan last month, I believe, talking about Tony Pollard and the division of labor in the backfield for the Tennessee Titans. We continue our best case and worst case for the Tennessee Titans this season. We'll do it all week. Yesterday, we started with Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons. Each day, we're going to do an offensive player or position group and a defensive player or position group. So today, we're going to start with Tony Pollard. And Tony Pollard is coming off of his third consecutive 1,000-yard season. But as Derek and I have discussed recently, Tony Pollard was by far the bell cow for the Tennessee Titans. 260 carries last season, the 8th most in the NFL among running backs, I believe, all positions when you include running quarterbacks, but 8th most in the NFL last season, 260 carries. And despite being in the top 10 in carries, I would say that he wasn't incredibly efficient. There is a fancy stat that the NFL tracks called success rate. And success rate measures the percentage of carries that result in positive expected points added, indicating the ability to keep the offense on schedule. Last year, Tony Pollard had a success rate of 35%, which was the worst of his NFL career, and ranked 33rd out of 41 qualified running backs. Now, to be fair, Tony Pollard was running behind a patchwork offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
This was amazing to me, Derek. Nearly 85% of Tony Pollard's rushing yards last season came after contact, which is the reason why is because he was contacted behind the line of scrimmage so much because the offensive lineman in front of him couldn't keep people in front of them. And yeah. I'm wondering what the best case scenario is for Tony Pollard. And to me, as odd as this may sound, but Brian Callahan talked about it in that clip, best case scenario for me is that Tony Pollard's carries go down and he can be more efficient with fewer carries. Looking at last season's numbers, Tony Pollard averaged roughly 16 rushing attempts per game. Tajay Spears, when he was healthy, averaged 7 rushing attempts per game. And we have seen in Tony Pollard's career that he can be an incredibly efficient running back when he's sharing the load in the backfield. That's how he broke out with the Dallas Cowboys. So to me, best case scenario is that Tony Pollard can have a 4th consecutive 1,000-yard season, but he's not carrying the load as much so that in the back half of the season, he isn't laboring through an injury. So to me, honestly, I think the best case scenario for Tony Pollard means that Tajay Spears is better. It may have little to do with Tony Pollard.
Yeah, it may. If you look at Tony Pollard's career and how it has evolved, his best year obviously was 2022 when he had over 1,000 yards, but he averaged 5.2 yards a carry, and he had, I think, 9-10 touchdowns. And I think that was over the last 3 years, that was the lowest amount of carries he got. He had 193 carries that year. But he was more productive when you're talking about average yard per carry. The more carries he get, it ends up going down. Now, 2 years ago, it went down to 4 yards per carry with 6 touchdowns. It ticked back up a little bit with the 260 carries. It ticked up to 4.2, but he went down in touchdowns. So the best case scenario for me is 190, maybe 200 carries, because I think he's most effective when he's doing that. But that also means that, other guys have to, come in and step up, whether, you're looking at it and whether it's Tajay Spears having to step up, or, are you looking for Chestnut to possibly step up? Guys like that, or the rookie out of Michigan. I think they're looking at him, one, a special teams guy, but then two, what is it, Mullins? His last
Mullins,
name?
I believe.
Mullins,
Yes.
his last name. But they hope that, because he was and listen, I try not to say too many good things about Michigan.
Mullings with a G.
Yeah, I try
Hillel
not to say
Mullings.
too many good things about Michigan players, but he was a physical runner at Michigan, and they're hoping that translate in the NFL. Not only can he be a special teams player, but he can be a guy that can get you those hard yardage between the tackles, but also can catch the ball. Because the problem with Tajay Spears, as we have seen since he's gotten into the NFL, he's always had these little nagging injuries, and he hasn't been able to stay on the field consistently enough to even, get momentum and be able to get a rhythm in the game, let alone the season. So best case scenario is 190 something, 200, but those guys behind him, Tajay Spears and Mullings, and maybe even Julius Chestnut, those guys can hold their own, and the running game still be an effective running game when Pollard's not in the game.
I'm looking at the Detroit Lions, and what makes the Lions special is they have a two-headed monster in the backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek or listeners, I don't think there is a team in the NFL that has such a two-headed monster of running backs in the NFL. We talked about this recently, Derek. We talked about Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
And Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, running quarterbacks. But in terms of running backs, last year, Jahmyr Gibbs averaged 14.7 rushing attempts per game. David Montgomery, 13.2. Like, I'm not asking for basically an even split with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, but I would like to see that number. I would like to see that number be closer. Again, Tony Pollard, 16.3 rushing attempts per game last season. Tajay Spears, 7.0. I would like to see it be Tony Pollard, 13, Tajay Spears, 10. So that would be taking 3 off of Pollard's plate and putting 3 more on Spears' plate.
And dispersing it with everybody else.
Yes, that's what I would like to see. That would be my best case scenario, is that Tony Pollard can still be effective because, again, 3 consecutive 1,000 rushing yard seasons. But I would like to see the Titans do what Brian Callahan was saying recently and dial it back so that he can be at his best as the season progresses. The worst case scenario is that Tajay Spears continues to have all of these nagging injuries, and Tony Pollard continues to have to carry the ball upwards of 250 times a year, and he gets hurt. Like that to me is the worst case scenario. So we talked about this with Tim Hasselbeck a couple weeks ago. The run game is crucial, as you've talked about, for a rookie quarterback. Absolutely crucial. And I think that the better Tony Pollard can be throughout the season, the better it is for Cam Ward. You don't want to run Tony Pollard into the ground so that he's banged up, because quite frankly, you haven't been able to count on Tajay Spears right now. So best case scenario for me is that it actually has less to do with Pollard and more to do with Spears.
Worst case scenario for me, and this may lead into another conversation for tomorrow or the next day when you continue to give us more players.
Yes.
Worst case scenario is the offensive line isn't any better than they were last year, and that because of that, Tony Pollard has to be the bell cow, and he's getting 250 more carries. And if that is indeed the case, he's not going to last the whole season. I'm just telling you that he's going to be banged up. You're going to get a declining player much faster. So to me, and then Tajay Spears is just going to be who he has been the last couple of years. He's going to be a guy that's often nicked up, often, in and out of the lineup, a guy that'll give you short spurts. So to me, that's worst case scenario. So everything really hinges on the offensive line. I think if the offensive line comes around, I don't think we will come close to the worst case scenario, which is obviously Pollard having over 250 carries once again, which is going to open him up to more injuries, and then our offensive line not improving.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Your best case scenario and worst case scenario this upcoming season for Tony Pollard. Let us know. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we will do our defensive player of the day, that being L'Jarius Sneed. We'll do that coming up next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game. D. Mace Finnegan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, hoping to be joined by Willie Donick this hour. Talking Titans best case and worst case scenarios. We continue our conversation throughout the week. We just did Tony Pollard. Up next on the defensive side of the ball, one L'Jarius Sneed. And we don't really need to recap L'Jarius Sneed's first season with the Tennessee Titans because we all know how it went. Bad. He played 5 games last season, dealt with a quad injury. We know about the knee. He's dealing with a legal situation that, as far as I know, has yet to be resolved. Who knows when it will be resolved? So with L'Jarius Sneed, I feel like the worst case scenario is what we all think it's going to be, which is he doesn't play.
Yeah, which wouldn't be good.
And what would the Titans do at that position if L'Jarius Sneed is unavailable for the season? Now, I remember when the L'Jarius Sneed news broke about the altercation, the alleged altercation at the car dealership in Texas. People were talking about, well, I hope he gets suspended so the Titans can get out of that contract. So some people might not think that is a worst case scenario. But if L'Jarius Sneed is unavailable, I have no idea what the Titans are going to do at cornerback. And Nick Suss of the Tennessean put it thusly, quote, in a world where Sneed isn't available come September, the Titans desperately need another veteran in the room, maybe 2, to stabilize a secondary that's taught to play aggressively, but also must play sticky enough to make up for a lack of true top-end pass rushers. And what I found to be interesting, Derek, is the list of available cornerbacks on the free agent market is fairly robust right now. Now, the fact that these players are available, they do come with some red flags, mostly injuries, and we know how Titans fans feel about signing players that have checkered injury histories.
Yes.
At the top of the list is Jair Alexander, who was recently released by the Green Bay Packers because couldn't stay healthy. James Bradbury, who, if I recall correctly, did not play last season because of injuries.
No.
Kendall Fuller, Rasul Douglas, Stephon Gilmore, Mike Hilton. An intriguing name near the bottom of this list, Asante Samuel Jr., because he's in his mid-20s. If the Titans are looking for a player who is young and can grow with the team, perhaps Samuel Jr. is that player. So there are options available. Now, I don't pretend to know exactly what kind of corners these guys are compared to L'Jarius Sneed. That's a better question for Derek Mason. But I legitimately wonder if Sneed is unavailable, whether he's too hurt to play, whether this legal situation means he's suspended or released. Who knows? I have no idea what the Titans would do at cornerback. And I think that they should be, and I'm sure they are, preparing contingency plans in case Sneed can't play.
Yeah, they have to be. But I think the Titans, in their situation, they believe that, at least they do have Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who show, improvement during the season. They hope that the second season he could take a bigger jump. So they have other guys out there, Gabe Judy Lawley, Mike Brown, not Mike Brown, he plays the safety position, but Darrell Baker Jr. So guys like that they hope can come in, 1, take another step, but then 2, be high contributors, within this defensive secondary. But yeah, a lot of it is based on how much or how improved L'Jarius Sneed is this season, because frankly, it was a lost season last year, majority of it due to injuries. But even when he was playing, it just didn't seem he fit what Denard Wilson was trying to do. And this year may be better because now he's a second year in the defense. So, and I think all those guys struggled in that defense the first year. Best case scenario, he comes out and we see the version of L'Jarius Sneed that we saw in Kansas City. That's best case scenario for me, and that those guys around him because of that improve. And worst case scenario is that I could say injury, but that's too easy. Worst case scenario for me is that he never meshes in his defense, because I've seen in this league where you take a defensive back and he may have been great for one system and you put him in another system, and lo and behold, he isn't the defensive back that we saw in prior years, not because he's declining in respect to his ability to play the position. He just wasn't that good, and the scheme fit him better there than it does here. That's worst case scenario for me.
I wouldn't even take you said best case scenario is we see the L'Jarius Sneed who starred in Kansas City.
Mhm.
I'll even go lower than that.
Oh, okay.
I won't even that would be great.
Yes.
I think that's best case scenario. I would take like 80%
Okay.
of that L'Jarius Sneed, because I don't know if we'll ever get the Kansas City version of L'Jarius Sneed in Tennessee. So I'll take a 4/5 version of that L'Jarius Sneed, because we certainly didn't see it last season. When he was on the field, I seem to remember it must have been the game against the Dolphins early in the season, and he was matched up against Tyreek Hill. And there were a couple of times, again, if I recall correctly, I've erased my memory of last Titans season because, man, where there were some just unwatchable games. But I remember there being at least a couple of times in that Dolphins game where if it wasn't Tyler Huntley throwing Tyreek Hill the ball, he would have beaten L'Jarius Sneed.
Oh, of course.
And to me, I'm just like, well, thank God it was Tyler Huntley throwing that ball and not Tua. So even when Sneed was on the field, I didn't think we saw the best version of Sneed. And I don't know if we're going to see the best version of Sneed this season if he's available because of the injury history and all of that. So I'll take a most of the way L'Jarius Sneed. I think that would be an improvement from last season. And if, of course, he can actually be on the field. I just think that if Sneed is unavailable, the domino effect it would have at the cornerback position, I think that would just hamper this Titans defense even more. And again, we talked about this yesterday. Thanks to the fabulous research team at CBS Sports, I finally found the numbers I had been looking for, that the Titans were the first team since the 1960 Chicago Bears to finish a season within the top 3 in total defense, meaning yards per game, but in the bottom 3 in scoring defense. And again, in 1960, there were 13 teams in the NFL. So it wasn't that hard to be in the top 3 and the bottom 3. So what the Titans did last season was incredibly impressive in the worst possible way. So if Sneed is not there, and I thought Jarvis Brownlee got a lot of reps he probably wasn't preparing to get. If I recall correctly, he got penalized a ton. He looked like a mid-round rookie. And that trial by fire certainly will help him as he grows in the NFL. But I'm just wondering if Sneed is unavailable. I think that it's imperative that the Titans go out and get someone. Caleb on our text line says they have to sign a guy at corner regardless, in his opinion. And I would tend to agree with that. Again, the cornerback market, there are a lot of brand name players, but they come with fair warts, mostly injuries. Like, I don't think the Titans are going to sign Jair Alexander. I don't think Jair Alexander would want to play for the Tennessee Titans, but there are players out there that Titans fans know, that NFL fans know. And I'm wondering if they would take a flyer on one of those guys, similarly to what they attempted to do last season with Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams. I'm wondering which corner out there could be that guy. But I just think that if Sneed is unavailable or mostly unavailable, it's going to have this ripple effect on the Titans defense where it may be just as bad as it was last season.
No, you're right. Especially if they're not getting the pressure up front, and not just the pressure, the sacks, because, you read out the stats with Jeffrey Simmons, I think yesterday, in regards to his pressures. His pressures were up
Right.
but he couldn't get to the court. He couldn't sack the quarterback.
Pro Football Focus said that his pass rush grade was the best of his career, but it only turned into 5 sacks.
Yes.
So, and you've talked about this a lot, Derek, talking about Sneed with the Chiefs. It makes your job a hell of a lot easier when you have Chris Jones
Exactly.
rushing the quarterback. And the Titans don't have a pass rush. There are still a lot of questions about the Titans pass rush, and that's going to make the corner's job harder, which puts a lot more pressure on Sneed and Brownlee and McCreary. And I just think that if you thought last season was bad defensively, without Sneed, again, worst case scenario, or a completely diminished Sneed, like he's out there, but he's clearly not himself.
Kind of like he looked like at the beginning of last year.
Right. Dustin from Hopkinsville says, best case scenario, Sneed plays at a level worth what we paid him. I'm not sure that's realistic. I'm not sure.
So you don't think, and listen, the injury / injuries, because whatever the quad was, I'm sure it did affect the knee. I'm just saying, I don't know for sure, but if my knee was already weak and I got a badly bruised quad, I would tend to think that it would affect my knee somehow, some way. So, I mean, gosh, with that knee injury or that injury period, the quad knee, will he come back and be that player? You know, because he's still the Titans. He still isn't doing anything as far as contact. I don't believe. He's still sort of going through his rehab process. And for a defensive back that's dealing with a leg injury, man, oh man, that's not a recipe for something good. It's just not. So, you know, if that pass rush doesn't improve, then you're right. We may not ever see the L'Jarius Sneed that we saw in Kansas City. And you may be right. Best case scenario is maybe he's 70% of what he used to be, 80% of what he used to be. If this knee isn't right, about time with the quad. I'm going to say the quad. If the quad isn't right, by the time we get to camp and he really gets an opportunity to test that leg in camp, if that doesn't happen, I'm not sure we will see even 70% of what he used to be when he was in Kansas City.
Are there any of these free agent cornerbacks that intrigue you? This is according to Spot Track. Available cornerbacks in free agency: Jair Alexander, James Bradbury, Kendall Fuller, Rasul Douglas, Stephon Gilmore, Mike Hilton, Emmanuel Mosley, Asante Samuel Jr. There are a lot of interesting names, a lot of names that NFL fans know. I don't know who would come on the cheap, but any of those names intrigue you?
I mean, Stephon Gilmore, he's getting older. He's 34 years old, man. And to me, this is the time where he needs to convert to safety. Now the interesting one is Asante Samuel. Is he a nickelback? Is he an outside guy? Which one is he?
Here's what PFF says about Asante Samuel Jr. Quote, after posting PFF coverage grades of 75.6 or better in each of the past 2 years, Samuel struggled early in his first year with defensive coordinator Jesse Minter at the helm, but played just 4 games before being placed on injured reserve with a shoulder injury. Likewise, Samuel's tackling woes, a problem that has reared its head throughout his career, were exacerbated, with the cornerback missing a whopping 22.2% of attempts. That said, Samuel's youth, pedigree, and experience will still be very appealing. And that's what's interesting. We talk about this across all sports. Like, when does potential turn into this is who a player is? So Asante Samuel Jr. was a 2nd-round pick, 47th overall in 2021 by the Los Angeles Chargers. He's a young man. He's in his, he'll be 26 in October. But we talk about this all the time. Like, I think we did this with maybe like Andre Dillard, for example. Like, well, he was a first round pick, so that potential is high. Well, eventually, the potential disappears, and who you are is who you are going to be.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if Asante Samuel Jr. has reached that point. Like, can you bank on him living up to his potential, or as he enters the later part of his 20s, is this who he is? So yes, his youth might give some teams some excitement about bringing him in. But then you also have to wonder, well, is this who he's going to be? I find that to be fascinating. When does the potential disappear and the realization come in that, hey, this guy is who he's going to be?
I think the league is telling you who he's going to be. He's still sitting out there. Now, listen, it could be a part of, him, being the reason that he's still out there because he wants a certain amount in contract dollars. It could be that. Or it could be that the NFL is telling you, like, listen, we don't think you're quite that guy anymore. Yes, you started off great your first couple of years, but you're just not the guy. You've reached your ceiling. You've reached the ceiling. You're not going to get any better. And how much is that worth? Is it worth $14-15 million per season? If it's that, you're not getting it. If it's worth a little bit more, then maybe. I think this year for a lot of teams, but a lot of these cornerbacks that are still sitting out there, so it's going to be a 1-year deal. And you're going to start seeing guys get signed as training camp hits, because I think in a Titans case, they would rather see what they got on the defensive side than to bring more guys in and miss an opportunity for a young guy. Because again, Brinkert, Borgazzi said it, and McCallahan, we're about drafting, developing, and retaining. Asante Samuels isn't a guy that fits that mold. So the only way he does, or any one of these quarterbacks, is that we go through camp, either somebody gets hurt or it's not looking, or Brownlee hasn't taken another step. That's when we let's talk to one of these guys and see if we can facilitate a 1-year deal and make it, incentive based. I think that's the only way the Titans go out and get another defensive back.
I'm looking to see the penalties here, because I do remember that Jarvis Brownlee was called for a lot of penalties. I'm looking to see where he ranks. Not roughing the passer, pass interference. How many? I'll have to look this up, so I'm not boring all of you while I look up these numbers. But I do remember that Brownlee seemed to get called for a lot of penalties. I think his youthful exuberance backfired on him.
And it's just
season.
him learning the game.
Yeah.
Knowing when he can use his hands. Because a lot of times he's in good position. It's just now you gotta learn how to. You can't learn unless you're in that position. Throughout your first year, and he has been. So this next season he comes back. Now he knows I'm in phase with the receiver. Now either I gotta talk to some of these veterans and figure out how they yank and pull without being called for holding, or now I've gotten used to playing the position at this level. And now not only am I going to be in phase with a guy, now I know I don't have to grab him because I've seen him on tape before. I know what his strengths and his weaknesses are.
615-737-1025. Best case, worst case for L'Jarius Sneed. We will continue this tomorrow and do so throughout the week as we look at the best case and worst case scenarios for Titans players on both sides of the ball. But coming up next, I stumbled across an interesting story written by June Lee, who used to work for ESPN, among other places, about how American sports leagues sold out and shattered sports culture. A really fascinating read, and we'll discuss that coming up next at 615-737-1025. But before we do, tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on the Iowa Cubs. Pregame begins at 6:20 p.m. and the first pitch is at 6:35. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. D. Mace Vingen and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, Willie Donick will join us momentarily. I combine the words Donick and join to Willie Jonick.
That's his new name.
Willie Jonick.
Jonick.
Nevertheless, so as I was doing my my daily reading, I'm a big reader, a voracious reader. There's another big word for you.
Ooh,
voracious.
Good word.
I stumbled across this article written by June Lee. He has covered sports for ESPN, Bleacher Report, and the Washington Post. Really great writer. I've always enjoyed his work.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote a guest essay for the New York Times. The headline, How American Sports Leagues Sold Out and Shattered Sports Culture. And I think we all know that the ever-increasing fragmentation of live sports is making it far more expensive to be a sports fan. Yesterday, we talked about Cam Ward. He's having a 6-part docuseries on Tubi. And I was like, I don't know what Tubi is. And somebody texted in and said, how does Adam not know what Tubi is?
How do you
And
not
I said,
know
let
what
me tell
Tubi
you about
is?
all the streaming services I have. And that's the point of being a sports fan. And as June Lee writes in this story, quote, I subscribe to nearly every service there is with live sports. YouTube TV, MLB.TV, NBA League Pass, NFL Sunday Ticket, Peacock, Apple TV Plus, Max, Amazon Prime, and Paramount for $2,634 a year. He is a Bostonian, a big Boston sports fan. He writes, but to watch the Boston Red Sox play the New York Yankees earlier this month, I would have had to fork over an additional $19.99 a month for some obscure baseball-focused service that has that slice of one of the most iconic rivalries in America's national pastime. And June Lee did a YouTube video to accompany this article. I actually believe the YouTube video came out first, and then he continued the story, moved it further by writing this guest essay for the New York Times. But just listen to June Lee explain how much more it costs to be a sports fan today versus 20 years ago.
If you want to follow your favorite teams, the cost has only gone up, but the ability to actually watch those teams has only gotten worse. And so I want to rewind back 20 years to see how much it actually costs to be a sports fan back then versus how much it costs to be a sports fan now. For the sake of this video, we're going to look at two types of sports fans, the casual and the hardcore. The casual fan, let's call him Jack. In 2004, Jack is a Lakers fan and pays for the cable package to watch the Lakers on national TV. He pays for one ticket whenever the Lakers come to Texas to play a game. He buys one jersey and a hat. In total, Jack pays around $664 to be a sports fan. The hardcore sports fan, let's call her Veronica. In 2004, Veronica also pays for the cable package to watch all the national TV games. She attends multiple games across all sports, buys 2 jerseys and hats per year. In total, Veronica pays about $1,321 a year to be a hardcore sports fan. Fast forward 20 years, Jack doesn't have cable. Now, when Jack's bored, it's TikTok or Netflix, and unlike 2004, following sports just requires the internet. If Jack wanted to watch sports the way he did 20 years ago, it would cost him $2,169, including his internet bill. This is a 227% increase from 20 years ago. In 2024, Veronica not only pays for cable and league packages, but every single streaming service. On top of that, she pays for high-speed internet. If everything else stays the same, Veronica now pays $4,784 per year to watch sports. This is a 262% increase.
So that was June Lee explaining the differences in being a casual sports fan and a hardcore sports fan in 2004 versus 2024. And in this essay, June Lee writes, quote, for decades, our national sports leagues, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NHL, operated more like civic institutions. These organizations may have always chased the mighty dollar, but they also wanted their sports to last. And as such, they cared about strengthening such powerful intangibles as local pride, generational fandom, and public ritual. Tradition was good business. Community built loyalty. Loyalty built value. Then came the streaming wars. Starting in the early 2010s, live sports events were one of the last types of programming that guaranteed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of real-time viewers, and the leagues began to be flooded with requests from streamers such as Amazon Prime, Peacock, and Max, begging for a piece of the pie. At the same time, the leagues were looking for a way to raise the cash required to invest in the lucrative opportunities offered by overseas expansion. And that's when the business of sustaining sports in America took a backseat, and our country's sports leagues stopped acting like caretakers and started thinking like asset managers. I think we can all relate to what June Lee is talking about here. It has become harder to be a sports fan. I will speak from experience, and I know a lot of you out there who are Predators fans know this too well. If you want to catch our man, Willie Donick, calling Predators games, there are so few services that actually have FanDuel Sports Network available to you. I have YouTube TV. It used to be on there. It's not on there anymore. So if I want to watch Willie Donick, who just stepped in the studio, if I want to watch Willie Donick and the gang call Predators games, on top of all of the other things I'm paying for, I have to pay for a subscription to FanDuel Sports Network. And I do that because it's part of my job to watch the Predators and keep up on the Predators. But I think that June Lee makes a fabulous point here. There was a line to me near the middle of this story that really resonated. He goes, "This mess isn't a glitch, it's the system. The blackouts and paywalls aren't bugs, they're features. The leagues and their investors count on fan loyalty, that your devotion runs too deep to quit. Fandom isn't being nurtured anymore, it's being mined."
Listen, it's the truth. I mean, they are trying to squeeze every ounce of juice out of this, orange, whatever you want to call it. And they've managed to do it. Why? Because we can't walk away. We can't. It's just like, it's something, and they got us. There's nowhere we can go. We're stuck. No matter, we will complain, and we have a right to complain. We will complain, but the fact remains is that if you want to see your team play and you don't have the means to go to the stadium every week, or you're not in that area, don't live in that area, then you got to pay for it, and they understand it. That's why everybody's getting in the game. That's why last year there was one game on this station, Peacock, and there was another game on Prime. And if you didn't have Peacock, you couldn't watch that game, or you had to pay for the streaming just for that month. You had to pay probably $10 to watch the game, because you wasn't going to use it after that. More than likely, you're going to deactivate the account.
Can I just say,
they understand that.
I'm the worst that, hey, subscribe for 7 days. This is what your buddies will tell you. Hey,
that's what they want you to do.
A temporary subscription for 7 days, and then just cancel it.
And you forget.
Cancel it. I'm that guy. Then all of a sudden, hey, I didn't know I had Peacock. That's me.
But I guarantee you.
I hope you like Law and Order.
Exactly. I would almost bet just about anything that there's at least 10% of their viewership comes from that.
Oh, totally.
People buy it, plan on, deactivating it the next day or the next week, and they just forget about it.
Well, I love this topic. I think this is really the crux of what's going on right now. And I equate it back to when I was a minor league baseball player. They would push the limit because the minor league baseball players have no rights, right? You're getting paid nothing. Maybe if you were lucky enough to be a high first round pick and you got a signing bonus, you probably blew it all on a car.
Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe you have a little extra spending money than the scrubs like me. But they test the limits they give you as minimal living conditions and daily meal money as they can. And you know why? Because they know that you love the game enough that you're not going to quit. And the ones who do quit, they're not going to make it anyway, right? So they're going to push the boundaries. And I feel like that's what's happening in sports viewing right now is we're pushing the boundaries. We're going to see how far we can push the diehard. And that's the important distinction that the author makes here. The diehards, they know we're suckers. We're going to do it. We're going to spend the money. We're going to get all the services. So what was the woman's name in the piece that we just So whatever her name is, Angela or
I can't recall.
Andrea, whoever the hardcore fan is, that's us, right? And of course, it's our job, so it's a little easier for us to justify the expense. But there's an increasing amount. There's still always going to be more casual fans than hardcore fans, and I think that's why it's happening to a lot of teams. Is when you make it hard to watch your games, you're going to whittle your audience down to the diehards, and so you better have a lot of diehards. And if you don't, you're going to suffer. And over time, when you lose that casual fan base, there is a price to be paid.
As June Lee writes, what used to be hometown investments, flawed but familiar symbols of local pride, are now spreadsheet cells, and with them go the parts of sports you can't quantify. The inside jokes, the heartbreaks, the irrational faith that next year will be our year. And it's not just the pros. College sports are being reshaped by whoever writes the biggest check, from deals to peddle their name, image, and likeness to conference realignment chaos. Increasingly, access to cultural life is paywalled. Sports is one of the last activities that can still be a shared American experience that cuts across class, race, and geography, unfolding live, unscripted, and in real time in the real world with real people. But instead of uniting us, it's been carved up.
That's the sad part to me. That's what we're losing, because I love the collective. I love when we get on this show and we all have watched the same game. Our audience has all watched. The three of us have all watched. Because that's the collective experience. That's fun. That's fun with what we're talking about. But it's harder to do that now because everybody's got their own little niches and things that they like to watch. It's the formula's different for everybody.
Right. And as June Lee writes, and as we played in that clip from his YouTube channel, it's just becoming so incredibly expensive to keep track of these things. As he writes in the story, quote, going to a game is similarly growing out of reach from 1999 to 2020. The average price of a seat across all sports rose roughly twice as fast as overall consumer prices. It increased 19.5% between May 2023 and May 2025 alone. One of the biggest jumps of any category tracked by the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Listen, the NFL will sell their product just about to any streaming network. If you got enough money to pay for it, they will sell it to you, because one, they want to become more of a global sport. So how do one become a global sport? Well, you get all these streamers, you need these streaming networks, because, they're going to be able to, if I got Netflix here, they got Netflix over there, in another country. It may be operated a little bit different, but they have Netflix over there. So they can watch their favorite team. They can't watch their favorite team on ABC, NBC, because when we all know when we go on vacation to an island or somewhere, they only got those certain channels, and that's all you're watching. And a lot of times it ain't sports. So how do you watch your sports when you're other places that you can't just flick on the television? Well, streaming systems, and they know it. They understand it. Whether you be at home or away, they know you want to watch the game. So instead of giving it to you for free, it's about the bottom line. How much money are we making? We're going to try to make it. We're going to slowly con you into giving us money each and every time. We know you're conning us, but we're going to do it anyway.
We're addicted.
Yeah, we're addicted to it.
As Gino on our text line says, I just remembered I still have a subscription to Peacock to get Big Ten football games. Forgot to unsub, and now I might as well just keep it for this next season.
I'll watch Law and Order wherever you say is on there. Hey, let's see what movies are on there, and you just
every Law and Order known to man. Law and Order SVU, Law and Order Criminal Intent, the organized crime one, the regular Law and Order.
Yeah, I don't watch any of them,
but now you have access to them.
Now I have. This is another part of it. Like a lot of things that move forward technologically, like our phones, like there's always a debate going on. Hey, if we screwed ourselves up because we're on our phones all the time? Well, the answer is yes and no. There's a lot of great things. There's a lot of great things about being able to punch in your navigation.
Yeah, definitely.
And get somewhere.
If you're not in your case, Willie.
Not every day. Yes. Not every day in my case. Most days, but not every day. But there is also something to be said for knowing your way around your city, right? And knowing the streets and knowing where to go and all of that stuff. Same thing with the sports watching. I love the fact that I can tune in the Mets every day. That's something that didn't exist 30 years ago. Now it's right there. If I want to do it, I can do it. But we lose something, right? You gain something, but you lose something.
Well, a lot of cities become transient, and a lot of people are in and out, in and out, in and out. And like a lot of people that are moving here to Nashville, some of them may be Cowboy fans, some of them may be Detroit fans, some of them may be Jet fans or LA Ram fans. But when they come here, the only way they can watch their team is if they get on the stream network, and they know it. People know it. I'm not sure people are traveling, back when it was just ABC, NBC, Willie, those days.
Sure.
I don't think people was traveling as much as they are now. So why do I need all of this stream? People are not going anywhere. Now people are leaving their homes, going to other states, other countries. Now these streams come into, now these streams help, because now I can watch my team anywhere on a planet that has an internet.
Except in the town that you live in. That's part of it too.
Exactly.
Well, this is the blackouts.
Yes,
is a big one.
absolutely.
We will get into that.
And that's
coming
the
up next.
crazy part
It's
about
again how you're weeding out your casual fans who won't make the extra effort to watch your game. That's what's happening a lot.
615-737-1025. June Lee writes in the New York Times, American sports leagues have sold out and shattered sports culture. Do you agree? What is your experience? 615-737-1025. But coming up next, June Lee offers some solutions to this issue. We will talk about those coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
how do you fix a broken system? Number one, kill blackouts. If you're paying for a service, you should be able to watch every single game. This is more simple than it sounds though. Streaming rights are currently complicated because of the reliance still on the cable package, but as we head towards a streaming-centric future, it will be easier to watch everything on streaming. If you're paying for a service, you should be able to watch every single game, period. And to be fair, according to multiple sources, the leagues are working on this. Rob Manfred's dream for Major League Baseball is having a mega streaming service where, without any blackouts, you pay once to watch any single game for an entire season. Step 2, we need to bring back the bundle. Right now, we're headed in the wrong direction. ESPN, Fox, and Turner previously announced a streaming bundle called Venue, but these plans were recently canceled. Instead, fans are going to need to pay for an incoming ESPN streaming service, a rumored Fox streaming service, and Max if they want to watch all the games and don't have cable. And step 3, more fan-friendly ticket policies. It's great when teams give student discount ticket packages, and it should be easier to get in the door and not have to pay $15 for a hot dog. I think we're at a breaking point where if the leagues try to continue squeezing every last dollar out of fans, the fans will simply stop showing up.
That was June Lee talking about potential solutions to the problem he discussed in a guest essay in the New York Times about how the NBA and MLB shattered America's sports culture. And the blackouts, that's the thing that drives me nuts the most. Eric on our text line says he watched more Preds games this past season in Buffalo thanks to ESPN Plus than I did the last 2 seasons while still in Nashville. Take it, I couldn't watch the Sabres play because I don't have cable. So he could watch the Predators from Buffalo. He couldn't watch the hometown team in Buffalo.
Well, I understand why, the local stations do that, because streaming, it's just like they're taking over. And it's like if you don't have regular television, then it's going to be blacked out. Am I saying that right? Like if you don't like
the idea of the blackout locally is that now where it gets really weird is how far out are the boundaries of the blackout. But let's just take it basically in Nashville. The rights holder is FanDuel Sports, and so they want to protect the local rights holder and not allow you to get they want you to watch the channel. They want you to watch that channel.
Whatever channel it is, FanDuel channel. They want you to watch the FanDuel channel as opposed to watching your local ABC or NBC, whichever channel or network it's originally on. Like it may be on ABC in another city. Well, why aren't they playing it on ABC here in Nashville?
Well, I mean, because it's not on free TV. You're when you buy cable or you have direct TV, you are paying for the service. It's just, you get a million channels that you don't watch, right?
Exactly.
But if you do that, you still get the games.
Yeah.
You just get a lot of channels that you probably don't want. And that's why so many people are, what do they call it? Cord cutters, right? Or your parents aren't cord cutters and you get their password or whatever and you get to watch. But again, you're adding steps and you lose casual fans in the mix. But what the caller is talking about, or the texter Adam is talking about, when you get ESPN Plus, right? Sometimes if you just have what you have ESPN Plus, and you get a lot of hockey games. But the rights for the FanDuel Sports are protected locally. They want you to watch through the thing. So this is what we have to break down the barrier one way or the other, and it's evolving every year. It's changing, just like when cable started, everything started to change. I think what a lot of teams are forced to ask the question now is, what's the end game? Is the end game to get people to come to your games? Or is the end game to squeeze every dollar out of the fans watching the games, right? There's a balance that's got to be struck. If you're just trying to get as many people interested in coming to your game, then you want to make the games as accessible as possible. And that's where it's going in a lot of cases.
So June Lee writes at the New York Times, for our national games, it's time for Congress to amend the antitrust exemption with a ban on blackouts, a cap on what streaming services can charge fans, and a requirement that media companies offer affordable bundles. For local games, state legislators, I should say, can force teams vying for taxpayer dollars to help pay for their gleaming new stadiums to offer affordable local streams guaranteed public simulcasts, and similarly, no blackouts. Some teams are already doing this. The Dallas Stars stream their regional games free with ads, proving that it's possible. Congress could also take inspiration from Britain's crown jewel rule and designate key sporting events, perhaps the World Series, the Super Bowl, and the NBA Finals, as nationally significant and require that they air on free, widely accessible platforms.
Well, the important point, you took the Stars, right? The Stars are one of several teams in a lot of sports that are going this route. They're making the games much more accessible for free, right? And so that's a good thing, but it's coming at a cost, right? They're sacrificing some money in hand because instead of selling the rights, which is I don't want to say traditional, because really the traditional is to put it on free TV, right?
Yeah.
That's how, when we were growing up, I'm sure without cable, you got your local team.
I mean, and you're talking about all sports.
This is going
boxing,
way back.
everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then cable came along, and then you started to see these regional sports networks. But I guess what might be the wave, the trend here is, again, if your end game is to get as many people watching your games as possible, and at the end of the day, you want people to come to your games, be more interested, the more accessible you make it, you're going to sacrifice some money on the front end because it's not easy money. You got to go out and work and sell the advertising, but more people are going to watch. And hopefully over time, you're going to come out ahead because more and more people are experiencing your team and wanting to be a part of it.
But they're not going to.
It's easier for them to get it.
I don't think it stops unless, frankly, Congress do something. But then sometimes you just don't want them to be involved in anything, especially sports. But I don't think anything's going to get done until that happens, because again, it's about the bottom line. It's not about, getting you to come to the stadiums, because they know they've outpriced people coming to the stadiums. They know that. The NFL knows that. So what is our second line of defense to draw in revenue? Well, it's with the streaming services, and they know it. So y'all are going to pay. Again, you can't come to the game because it costs too much. Your second choice is to what? Watch it at home, which comes with a premium to watch it at home if you want to watch all the games.
Let's go to Michael on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Michael, thank you for holding. Please go ahead.
I appreciate it. No, you guys actually covered a lot of it just now while I'm listening. And I was going to kind of talk about direct-to-consumer by the team. I didn't know the Stars did that. So your opinions, what is the viability of a team just going direct-to-consumer? And it could be different, right? So say the Preds decide they're going to launch on the Predators app all the games, or they decide they want to do ABC in the local region. Do you think that's a viable way to go in the future? Because I'm kind of with you, Derek. I don't love the idea of Congress getting involved because where does it stop? But what do you think the viability of each team in every sport doing their own direct-to-consumer platform? So yeah, I'm going to see what you guys think.
Doesn't baseball do that more so than anybody?
Let's use the Predators, for example. The Predators put some of your broadcasts on News Channel 5 during the season, correct?
Yes, and we got a bigger audience because of it. Just like we talked about when a game is on, any game is on a channel like Channel 5 or Channel 2, your ratings automatically are going to be bigger. Your audience is going to be bigger just by doing that. So that's what we experienced I think we did 3 games on Channel 5 last year. So the caller's question, I do think there is a trend. There is starting to be a collective thought among a lot of teams, especially because, as we've seen, there's a lot of because of the cord cutting, it's really complicated everything for the old model. The old model, you almost can't, it's hard to sustain the old model right now. So you have to evolve in some way, either by some sort of hybrid or go all in on kind of what Dallas is doing here. And so everybody's got different deals. Everybody's got different contracts. But I think that is something. I wonder if you wind the clock forward about 10 years, 5 to 10 years, is this what we're going to see with a lot of the teams?
Jared from Spring Hill says, I feel it could be bad timing with the Titans opening a new stadium, yet the games and concert ticket prices are only going to get more out of reach. Wes in Clarksville says, I cut cord to get Hulu Live several years back. You could get almost every channel for $60. Now Hulu Live is $90 a month. It's ridiculous. He goes, that's why I'm not a big Preds fan, because you shouldn't have to pay extra to watch your local team. I don't think he means like he's mad at the Predators for doing that. It's harder to watch. It's harder to watch.
It's become
games.
hard because you get one service
Mm-hmm.
at one price and then it changes,
Mm-hmm.
or that, and then the price goes up and you're like, well, I don't like that, so I got to do something else. Or your team is on one on the service you get. Like, let's say take Hulu, whatever. Your team is on Hulu, and then maybe after a season, the deal with Hulu is up with that team or that league, and you don't get any more. And so now you got to go wherever they go. It's very, very frustrating for the consumer, which is, again, another thing that's pushing a lot of teams towards, let's just do it straight up. Let's just make it accessible and not make our fans jump through hoops to get our games.
Let's quickly go to Chol on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Chol, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, you guys said a lot of stuff. Well, I used to have a Hulu. I cut it off because of the same stuff. Then I went to ESPN, and then they have like a blackout. I cannot watch Predators, so I have to call them and say, "Oh, you got to do this." I know it's in your. I'll pay for it. So why did say this package is not in my package? So now I have Paramount and Peacock. And, you know, it's annoying because this is how we're going to watch the game, just share them. I hope cable companies or streaming, they just put all the sport in one package without all these other stuff in the middle you have to pay. That's why I cut off Hulu. I started with $40 and ending up with almost $100. You know, and I'm not watching. I'm always working 5 days, only weekend, watch my team. Memphis Grizzlies or Nashville Predators or another team. And I think everything is getting worse. I hope, you know, it gets changed soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chol.
Similar story, right?
Yes.
Because then there's you get this, right? Well, I'm paying for all these services. I got to sit here and watch all these games. And then you have no life. You become a couch potato and you're like, get out of shape. Like, then you're like, well, I need to have the game on my phone.
But I think Derek made the right point, which is we diehard fans. We're suckers.
They got us.
If we love,
you're going to have us.
Yes. It's about the casual fan. The casual fan is being priced out of going to games and being able to watch your favorite team in the comfort of your own home. And June Lee talks about in the article about, you know, that communal experience, going to a sports bar, being around strangers. You all have a common thread, your local sports team. It feels like those days are behind us, which is unfortunate. That's the best part about being a sports fan, is you could be different in every other way from the person sitting next to you at the bar. You could be different politically, you could be different socioeconomically, but you have that connection. You're a fan of the same team. And that is going away. And it's unfortunate, but with the way
or the other thing that's collected is you might be a fan of a team and you're like a cord cutter and like, I'm a casual fan. So you're following the team, you're getting little clips, little highlights on your phone, right? Your Twitter. Oh, here's the goal. And you, in your mind, especially a younger audience, you say, yeah, I watched the game. Well, you didn't really watch the game. You watched clips, you followed the game, but that's different than as you're talking about, the collective experience. We're like, what happened? What about when this happened? You know, and it doesn't make the clips, right? Not everybody sees the same thing. We're losing something there.
When you start to look at this, these costs, it's just, and frankly, it's only going to go up. Netflix, $17. I think it's even more than that now. Hulu, $18. Disney. Do they show games on Disney? I think they do.
Sometimes Disney, I think Disney has a bundle with Hulu. Yeah. They're all connected.
So
I don't know.
$15.
ESPN, Disney,
Peacock,
Hulu.
$13.
Yeah,
Paramount, $13. Amazon, $14. Well, really $15. So you're looking at all of this and it's adding up. And it's all because one week it may be here, another week it may be there. No, this person bought this, this stream bought this game for this year on Christmas. So now we got to switch over and watch it on here. They got us and they know it.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on this. An interesting report about the Predators yesterday that I stumbled across. I saw it on Twitter. I wanted to hear it. I found the audio. We will discuss that coming up next. I was also just alerted to an interesting report about Roman Yossi, and we will discuss that coming up next at 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
Hey, if you're looking to do a little home improvement, you're going to upgrade a bathroom, a kitchen, a man cave, a patio, whatever it might be in your home, and you've been visualizing it and you're saying, how do I fund it? Well, our friends at Loan Pronto are ready to do it by using your home's equity to drive that engine. It's called the Rapid Equity Loan Program. And here's the thing. You can get approved in under 24 hours, and you can get this cash with a great system efficiently, not a whole lot of headaches to try to get this done. And you could be on your way to that new patio that you've been looking for that maybe has the outside TV and the grill and all of that stuff. Instant approvals, low rates, no hard credit pull. These are the things that help Loan Pronto get you that money fast so you can get to the end game. Call Loan Pronto and find out more about the Rapid Equity Loan Program. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We will continue to take your reaction to June Lee's article in the New York Times about the state of American sports. I did want to pass along something that I stumbled across on my timeline. It's from SwissHockeyNews.ch. It's a story aggregated from an interview that Roman Josi did with Blick, B-L-I-C-K, which is a Swiss-German newspaper.
I wonder what that means in Swiss German. Blick.
I don't know.
Is that like awesome or super cool, cutting edge?
I mean, I tell you what,
And
the young
we need
kids
to incorporate
tell you
that
what it
on our
means.
show. Hey, that was
The young
Blick,
kid
man.
says it means something else.
Hopefully it's not a bad word. Did I just
No,
say
it's not a bad word. No, it's just a
Not in
firearm.
not
It's
in
a
English, you did.
It's a firearm. That's what they call a firearm.
So this
I don't know.
SwissHockeyNews.ch aggregated this story about Roman Josi, how he has been dealing with something that, okay, I hope I pronounced this correctly, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome,
Absolutely.
POTS. According to this aggregated article, the condition was discovered during a checkup in Denver. According to the Cleveland Clinic, POTS is a condition that causes a number of symptoms when you transition from lying down to standing up, such as a fast heart rate, dizziness, and fatigue. While there's no cure, several treatments and lifestyle changes can help manage the symptoms, I should say, of POTS. And according to this aggregated article, Josi's checkup in Denver revealed that his brain is fine. And we know that Roman Josi has an extensive history of concussions, including at the end of this past season. But that he is indeed he is fine, but that he is indeed suffering from POTS. He's quoted as saying, and this is maybe loosely translated, over the last 8 weeks, I have undergone intensive therapy, which also included taking beta blockers. I've been feeling much better since then. I've regained the belief that I'll be 100% fit again and can truly attack with Nashville and the Swiss national team next winter.
So it only happens when he's transitioning from laying down to getting up. That's when he feels the sort of effects.
And my wife is correcting me. Thanks, honey. That it's just, I guess, called POTS and not POTS.
Yeah, you should have just said POTS, man.
Whatever.
You gave this whole long thing. I'm like, your wife's right, man. Adam, POTS, man. It's serious, but it is serious.
I'm stroking my wife's ego.
Yeah, a friend of mine has it, and she's told me in the past, like it has seriously like crippled her, like where she couldn't do anything the whole day, and she's had to go to the hospital. So that is it can become serious. So you should have just said POTS, man.
Okay. Thank you, honey. I know you want me to.
This proves though that you listen to the show.
Yes.
We wonder if anything else that you said, we'll get back to it.
Absolutely.
Remember, according to my son, Derek is good and Willie is bad and Daddy is bad. So that's something to keep an eye on, I guess, with Roman Josi. He was named. So yesterday, I believe it was, all of the national teams participating in the Olympics unveiled the first 6 players on their preliminary Olympic roster. No surprise, Roman Josi, one of the 6 Swiss representatives. And we know how important Roman Josi is to the Nashville Predators. So this will be something to keep an eye on as the season approaches. But let's get back into a little bit more reaction from our previous discussion. Dylan is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Dylan, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, yes, guys. I just wanted to get your, I guess, opinions on this. I know you guys don't talk about the UFC at all, but one of the cool things I think about UFC is that anybody can watch it, and then they have pay-per-view fights for what are kind of could be compared to the playoffs, 2 high-ranking fighters, or their versions of the Super Bowls where you pay-per-view for the who gets the belt. So do you think that some of these sports teams should move to that, where the entirety of the regular season should be, free to everybody and anybody, But say if you get to the playoffs, you can pay for like a package or something, because truthfully, you would really only pay if it's your team out there. And then if you're a casual fan, maybe you want to see like a really good matchup, you could pay for that, like the playoff games, because there's really not that many as like in the NFL as there is in like hockey, where it's the best out of 7 or something like that. So do you think that kind of format would work? And I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you, John.
Probably not, because if you make it accessible and free to everybody, it doesn't fit the bottom line. The only reason, these sports entities have gone the way of streaming because they know it generates a bunch of money. It helps the bottom line, whether it, doing a multi-billion-dollar deal with ESPN or Fox or anybody else. And then as you start to go down the line, it's doing $1 million plus deals with Hulu and Amazon and stuff like that. So it sounds good. That's the way it used to be, Willie. That's the way it used to be. You flick on a television, you can just watch anything. But now, because the bottom line is about money, that has gone and it's never coming back, unfortunately.
And what's interesting just about buying a streaming service just to watch one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have mostly every streaming service known to man. A few months ago, I think it was back in January, this is not sports per se, it's sports entertainment, but WWE put its flagship show, Monday Night Raw, on Netflix. It's exclusive to Netflix in the United States. I didn't have Netflix, but I would buy Netflix so that I can watch Monday Night Raw. The reason I have Peacock is because WWE puts its pay-per-views, which are now termed premium live events, on Peacock. If you have Peacock, you can watch all of the monthly big shows. That's the only reason I have Peacock. Now, I'll watch some other shows on there on occasion, but I'm willing to pay for those streaming services for that one reason. But not everybody has the luxury to do that. By the way, Brian says Blick means look in German, and Scott says Blick means view or sight.
Ah, so we got it.
So now you learned something.
All right.
John from Nashville says there are not many things more fun than cheering for your team, high-fiving people you don't know in a bar. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're right. I mean,
I've seen full-on hugs. Remember the movie?
Like you walked in with the guy.
Remember the movie Major League where the Indians win it? Oh my God, the Indians win it! And the people, the one guy with the hair that's all spiked up and like New Wavy or whatever hugs the guy who's got the hard hat. Like that's what happens. That's what it's all about.
One texter says, if games are hard to find or blacked out all the time, people aren't watching. For me, if I'm able to watch more games and feel more invested in a team, I would be more likely to find a game I want to go to and spend the ridiculous money. But I'm not spending money on and time on a team that I can't even watch all season. Totally understand.
Well, again, I think a lot of it, is because, again, so many people are moving in and out of cities that, again, if I was, say, if it, yes, I'm in Nashville, I can watch the Titans, but what if I move to, up north? In Michigan, they ain't looking to show Titan games. They're Chicago or a northern team or an out west team. They're not going to show a Tennessee Titan team. Believe me, I know, because my family, they had to order one of the streams when I was playing. They had to make sure they had cable so they can watch the games. So it's hard to do because the fan base has expanded so much. So, again, it would be nice if we all got to watch, sporting events on regular channel, but those days are gone. And they understand that we can make more money because it's even to the point, like I said, you can't even go to games no more. They priced you out of that. So the only other way you feel you can watch your team play is you have to get one of these streaming services.
I remember when I was in college, I went to school in Washington, D.C. It was easy for me to just take my student ID to what was then called Verizon Center, and I would get cheap tickets to Wizards games or Capitals games, and that's huge. It's huge for for young fans to be able to afford to go to games. It's unfortunate that doesn't happen. Caleb on the text line says, "Don't lie, Adam. You and the wife binge Love Island on Peacock like the rest of us married couples do." I can honestly tell you, I have never seen an episode of Love Island.
I tried to watch it.
either.
I tried to watch it and couldn't. I tried to.
Oh God,
I tried.
Here's
Yeah,
a good one.
tried.
One texter. Glad you guys are talking about this. Raising young kids here who I try to promote local teams with. Unfortunately, difficulty to watch games means the kids don't get to watch much. My son's main exposure to Titans is Jared Stillman rants.
Oh Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Congress, act now!
Mom,
Get off your bureaucratic butts and save these kids.
from Stillman, please.
It's about the kids.
Nah, he's hopefully he's able to decipher between some of the stuff that Jared says. Not all of it, but some of it, you know. So
Viking Matt says, I am shocked that grown men still watch WWE. Hey, it's still real to me, damn it.
hey, WWE, listen, I may not that may not be my cup of tea anymore, because I used to love it back in the day. And I'm not saying that, you know, back in the day was the greatest of wrestling times. But hey, if you like wrestling, it's another form of entertainment.
Let me tell you my favorite.
Enjoy it.
Let me tell you my favorite part about wrestling. It's new every single week.
Yeah.
If you have a favorite show, a prestige drama, perhaps, you'll get 10 episodes. Then that show will disappear for 3 years while they're making a new one. Right?
Yep.
Wrestling, it's new every single week, multiple times a week. There's always something new to watch every week. I love that. 615-737-1025. Okay, I mentioned a report about the Predators that I read, then heard yesterday. We'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Speaking of that phone number, I've been meaning to do this. We have tickets to give away. So be caller number 3 at 615-737-1025. Caller number 3. And you will win a pair of tickets to see Incubus next Wednesday, June 25th at Bridgestone Arena. Caller number 3, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. It's creeping up on us, although tonight could be the final game of the NHL season, Game 6 of the Stanley Cup final between the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers. The NHL draft is a week and a half away. 1 week from Friday is the first round of the NHL draft. The Predators have the number 5 overall pick. They have 3 first-round picks as of now. And I've stumbled across a new account on X. You know how X is. They show you accounts that they think you might be interested in. And there is an aggregation account called NHL Rumor Report, spelled the Canadian way, RUMOUR Report. And one of the posts was a transcript from James Myrtle. James Myrtle is a senior NHL writer for The Athletic, has been covering the NHL for a long time, worked for some national newspapers in Canada, the Globe and Mail, if I recall correctly, and was one of the first major hires of The Athletic when it launched several years ago. And James is on a Maple Leafs-centric podcast called The Leaf Report. And on this podcast, he and his co-host, I believe Jonas Siegel, were talking about players that, specifically centers, who the Toronto Maple Leafs could pursue in the summer. And if you'll recall, during the lead up to the trade deadline, there was a lot of speculation about Ryan O'Reilly. And could the Predators move on from Ryan O'Reilly?
I think we had a podcast about this, did we not? The Predators Insider.
We did. And by the way, we will have a special NHL draft / free agency edition of Preds Insiders next week. So look forward to that. But they were talking about Siegel and Myrtle. We're talking about Ryan O'Reilly. And then Myrtle said this, which I found to be quite interesting.
I would go back to, I put Ryan O'Reilly on there. I would try again there, see if there's a change of heart, and then see if there's anything you can do for Nashville. But you're right, Nashville's kind of the same. They're trying to be good, quote unquote.
I don't know if they see a realistic path to being good. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. They had just such a brutal year that might be one where they are ready to take a step back to try and be better 2 years from now or something like that.
So a quick clip, but according to Myrtle, who is plugged in?
Do you think he's plugged in to Nashville? I mean, he's a very good writer, but as you said, Leaf-centric. He is Toronto through and through. I always wonder, on a podcast like that, is he speaking just, hey, I'm riffing off the top of my head. I know the league. I watch the league. I'm knowledgeable. You could make that statement without having talked to anybody in Nashville to really bounce that off and say, am I right or am I wrong? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
He may be right.
Yes.
But I don't know if it's because he's talked to somebody in Nashville who has told him, hey, man, we don't think we can be any good next year. So that's what I'm skeptical of.
I think he is well-sourced enough that he has spoken to someone. It may not be somebody within the Predators organization, but maybe it's somebody within another organization.
Did he talk to you?
Who has talked to the Predators?
He talked to you, who talked to somebody, who talked to Barry Trotz.
But this idea,
or who listened to Barry Trotz talk to Jared Stillman.
Well,
did he talk to Stillman?
What's the line from Ferris Bueller? So and so talked to so and so who saw him at
31 Flavors.
31
Ferris
Flavors.
passed out at 31 Flavors last night.
Yes,
that's it. Perfect.
But when I heard that about maybe they don't see a realistic path to being good and could be ready to take a step back, my first thought was, isn't it too late for that? That was my first thought. If the Predators wanted to do that, it should have already happened. And when I heard this, I went back and I found a story I wrote more than 3 years ago after the Predators were eliminated via sweep by the Colorado Avalanche in the first round with the headline, "The Predators won't get better until they allow themselves to get worse." And I was adamant that the Predators should take that step back. But I feel like even if the Predators wanted to do that, let's say that Myrtle is correct. Even if the Predators wanted to do that, I don't see how they can because of the contracts they've signed and the clauses attached to those contracts. We talked about Jonathan Marchessault. There's been a lot of rumors about Marchessault. Then Elliot Freeman reported a couple weeks ago that, contrary to what we believed, Marchessault has a full no movement clause. There are plenty of other important players on the Predators who have full no movement clauses. So even if the Predators truly don't see a realistic path to being good, to borrow Myrtle's words, I just don't see how they could possibly do it now based on the contracts they've signed. I feel like they're boxed in.
I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to do what Barry Trotz has said he wants to do. Now, whether they can do it or not, that's very much up for debate. It could go terribly wrong, right? I think the guys in the morning had their discussion on whether they think that could happen or not. Here's my experience of the James Myrtles and the Toronto-based media, okay? Everything comes back to the Leafs' perspective. How does this affect the Leafs? In fact, what's the Shayna Goldman's podcast with
Too many men.
It's a great podcast. They have a segment on there, which is hilarious. It's always like, take any random story, any hockey story, or even sometimes a non-hockey story, and say, how does this affect the Leafs? Because it's one of the big epicenters of hockey, right? And everything revolves around the Maple Leafs. So when you hear, hey, how do the subject of that is not, hey, can the Predators be good next year? That's not the subject.
It's
the
can
subject
they get
is,
Ryan O'Reilly?
Exactly. How do we, the Maple Leafs, get Ryan O'Reilly out of Nashville and back in a Maple Leafs uniform? That is the motivation. So that's why I submit to you, he hasn't talked to anybody in Nashville.
This has nothing to
Anybody.
do with the Predators.
Right.
Nothing whatsoever.
Willie is right about how this affects the
Oh,
Leafs. Right.
man.
That is a running joke in the NHL.
Oh,
world.
my goodness.
And look, the other thing that they never do in the Toronto-based world, right? They never tell you who they're going to trade for Ryan O'Reilly. Oh, yeah, let's get the Predators. I don't think they think they're going to be any good. Let's go just get Ryan O'Reilly. Well, who are you going to trade?
Nobody.
Yeah, we're going to give you our spare parts and Jason Robertson's brother and the third-round pick and maybe a first-round pick in 2030. No. That's not how it works. So pump the brakes on specifically Ryan O'Reilly. But also, I think it's a very reasonable question. Can the Predators bounce back and do what they want to do, what they say they want to do? Or is it better to go ahead and hedge your bets a little bit? Play, don't go all in to try to get better just for next year, right? These are all very reasonable questions. But I question his motives. I question the motives of Mr. Myrtle.
So Pierre LeBrun at The Athletic wrote this recently because free agency is 2 weeks from today, if my math is right, July 1st. He wrote this about the Predators. Quote, the Predators won't be setting off July 1st fireworks after 2 consecutive years of adding big names. They want to let their roster settle. They might make a subtle signing or two, but nothing too flashy. The Predators have several players entering the last year of their deals. Michael Bunting, Colton Sissons, Michael McCarron, Jeremy Lauzon. So if they don't bounce back, they could sell at the March trade deadline, but otherwise it's about keeping the path open for some of their top prospects, which Barry Trotz has talked about quite a bit.
And what does Pierre LeBrun routinely do? He talks to Barry Trotz.
He does.
Barry Trotz talks back to him, talks to Elliot Friedman. That is a very reasonable. And Barry Trotz has said that himself. You don't have to read Pierre LeBrun to say that. He has said they're not going to be that active in free agency. He has said, I'd like to do something to the blue line. But if you think they're going to go out and sign another Marchessault kind of thing, he has said that's not going to happen.
And we'll see what happens with this Marchessault stuff. We haven't heard much lately. As we talked about a few weeks ago, I am uninterested, if I'm the Predators, in giving him away. If a team really wants him and is willing to give you something of value, you should do it. I just don't think you should give him away, despite the fact that he had a down season. He still had, 55, 60 points, thereabouts. And we know that he's a good player. Now, there are questions about whether he fits the scheme, and he made those thoughts loud and clear at the end of the season.
Yes, he did.
So there is that question. But I just feel that the Predators, even if they wanted to do what Myrtle is saying there, let's just take him at his word right now. I don't think there is a realistic path for them to do what Myrtle is talking about, just because of the contracts they've signed in recent years. And UC Saros, of course, in 2 weeks, his no movement clause will kick in and he'll have trade protection too. And, the one thing that I have disagreed on about how Barry Trotz has described what he's been trying to do these past couple of years, the one term I keep honing in on is buying time. He has said that on numerous occasions when he's talked to Jared, when he's done other news conferences. He's buying time. He signed the players he signed last year to buy time. Where I have a hard time believing that is I don't think you sign the players that he signed in free agency last year to buy time. You don't sign Steven Stamkos to buy time. You sign Nick Foligno to buy time. You sign Patrick Maroon to buy time. You don't sign the players he signed to the contracts he signed them to buy time. I doubt that Barry Trotz, in his sales pitch to Steven Stamkos last year, said, Steven, you had an illustrious career in Tampa Bay, multi-time Stanley Cup champion, first ballot Hall of Famer. Come to Nashville and keep Joakim Kimmel's seat warm for him for a few years. That's not what he sold him on. I'm sure he sold him on the idea of winning. Yeah. So that is where I hear Barry Trotz say that, and I vehemently disagree with that because I just don't think you sign the players he signed to buy time. So I am curious, Willie, about the types of players that he will pursue in free agency. So I don't think Predators fans have this thought that Mitch Marner, come on down. Like that's not happening.
No, I don't think they have the budget and the cap space to really do that unless they move a couple of contracts. I'm with you that the buy time was not in a rebuild kind of thing. They were, I think everybody was a little surprised, including Barry Trotz, that they were better than people thought they were going to be 2 years ago. And then when he did that, when they did that, he still had the same vision of developing the draft picks, the draft capital, the prospects that were already in the works. And it does take a lot longer than we all want it to, right? These kids, it takes 4 or 5 years for these guys. And we want them to be ready right now. None of them were ready last year. Nobody blossomed last year. That was a big problem. So I think they're still in that mode of trying to thread the needle of having your cake and eating it too, winning while you're buying time for the prospects to marinate. But number one, your veteran players have to play well. None of them did last year. And two, eventually some of the young guys have to pop. None of them did last year. So that's really where they're at. Will there be a bounce back and some of the 30-somethings have much better years than last year? I think it's plausible. And is it also plausible that after another year, a Zach LaRue, a Luke Evangelista, maybe you start seeing it from Svechkov, a couple other guys, the light goes on? I do remember Peter Laviolette's first year after they fired Barry Trotz, David Poile, the light suddenly went on for Ryan Ellis and Matthias Ekholm and Roman Josi went to another level. And all of a sudden you're like, hey, man, these guys are pretty good. And the next thing you know, they're back in the playoffs with a good young nucleus that they could build around. That's the ideal scenario.
Chris Johnston of The Athletic wrote a story a few days ago with the headline is NHL's old guys, in quotes, dominate Stanley Cup final. Will it affect how teams are constructed? We talked about Brad Marchand yesterday, Sergei Bobrovsky, Corey Perry. They're all having big Stanley Cup finals, big playoffs. And they were talking about how could that impact how teams build their rosters? Will teams look to add more of those veteran players? And I thought that this was an interesting section of the story. Quote, one GM indicated that age doesn't tend to be a major factor in decisions, except when it comes to a player he already has other reservations about. While a second GM said that he's always valued experience when trying to build a contending team and has only had that idea reinforced by seeing how the in-season additions paid off for Edmonton and Florida. A third team executive noted that it's important what kind of team is adding the Graybeards, noting that the Nashville Predators, Chicago Blackhawks, and Detroit Red Wings are among the teams who have seen minimal return from adding veteran free agents in recent years to cores that weren't strong enough to maximize that.
And I think that's what Barry Trotz has been saying in the buy time. He wants the young players that are still too young to do this, to jump up and be the core or start forming a new core faster than it's happening. And obviously, the whole season last year was in shambles because neither thing happened. The old guys didn't pull the weight, and the young guys didn't form a core of anything, right? That nobody had a good year. Nobody. It's got to hope. You got to hope that it's better next year.
No, they didn't. And in an ideal situation, it's, these older guys that we went out and got, coupled with the guys that are here, will help that transition for those younger guys, and they can see how these older guys play and practice, and they learn from that. Well, unfortunately for the Predators, it didn't happen the way they expected it. They expected for the season prior to bleed into this season with the older new guys, and it just work out perfect. Well, it didn't. And now you're trying to find a way. Do you build it this way, continue to try to go down this route at least for another season or two, or do we go the other way with sort of, anticipating we're going to have to build from the ground up?
Well, the first major step is a week from Friday, when the Predators are on the clock with the 5th overall pick in the NHL draft. That is a big part of the direction that the Predators ultimately take in the coming years. 615.
Here's a real quick point about that. What do you think the percentage chances? I got asked this the other day on George's show. The 5th pick, will he play for the Predators this year?
If I had to guess right now, and maybe this is worth doing some research for, maybe this is a good topic idea for the NHL draft. I'm curious how many number 5 overall picks, like how many games they play in the rookie season.
Right. And remember, the caveat would be, remember, you can kind of experiment for 8 or 9 games.
Yes.
You can play 9 games?
Yeah, the entry-level contract slide.
Because it doesn't count as a year of your contract. So you can give them a little tryout, be around, but then the key is, do you keep them for the whole year?
Right.
And I would say the number, it's probably less than 50-50, unless this kid, whoever they take, just comes out of the gate flying. So this year, they're not going to fix their problems through this group that they're about to draft. Now, you got to hope that with all the picks they have, they come up with some really good picks. But I hate to say it, it's going to be 3, 4, 5 years before you really see what this group is going to give you. That's the dilemma of this league.
As my dad often says sarcastically, hot diggity. 615-737-1025. Jared Stillman will join us coming up next. Willie Dondick, Derek Mason, Adam Ving at 1025-1063 The Game.
All right, let's tell you about F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. They have all of your financial needs, and they've got 20 locations spread around our listening area. And a little shout out to our friends in Clarksville, because they've got a bunch of locations out there, 6 to be exact. So if you're in Clarksville and you haven't sampled what they can do for you at F&M Bank, give them a shot. Up in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, they've got a really nice establishment up there. And, of course, throughout the bread and butter of our listening area, right in Nashville, on West End, over in Murfreesboro, in Franklin, Mount Juliet, Springfield. They're all over the place. And their motto is, your business means more to them. So check them out. Just find the nearest location. Simple website, myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com. We will take it to the bank on Friday at 1:45. Once again, it's F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. Member FDIC.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Stillman and Company coming up next, and joining us before Stillman and Company is Jared Stillman. Jared, I'm glad that you're not big timing us today. Thank you for joining us.
I have a bone to pick with this program, most notably with Willie Donick, and then I'm going to defend Willie Donick if that's okay.
Okay,
bring it on.
Actually,
you can only do it.
I have a bone to pick with this entire program, with the exception of Derek.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
I
I'm just
don't know
gonna
how
sit back.
usually Derek
how
is
did
the
I
one
get
who
out of
took
this?
the brunt
Yeah.
of it from me. So this is
Exactly.
Take it away, Jared.
Willie's sitting there talking about, who was that report from The Athletic that you read about?
James Myrtle.
No. The one that was in The Athletic yesterday, Adam.
The one that was in The Athletic yesterday.
The other one.
Pierre LeBrun.
Who?
I'm not doing it.
Pierre LeBrun.
I'm not doing
And
that.
my bone to pick with Willie is Willie's like, Barry Trotz talks to Pierre LeBrun, and Barry Trotz talks to Elliott, and Barry Trotz talks to me too, Willie.
I said it.
I just want you to know that.
No, I did.
He
We can
said
wind
your
the tape
name.
back.
He said your name.
I said verbatim. This is what I said. He talks to Pierre all the time. He talks to Elliott all the time. I said he talks to Jared and says it firsthand. You don't have to. I said you don't have to read Pierre. Did I not say that?
That's what
you
you
don't
said.
have
Yes,
to
you
read
said that,
Pierre.
Jared.
All you
Okay,
got to
then I
do
have less
is
of a bone.
implying. All you got to do. Right. So, okay.
Now,
So,
I
okay.
am going to back
Pull
Willie.
back that bone.
I am going to back Willie on this. So the Barry Trotz was buying time comments. Adam and Joe Rexroad think that it is absurd for Barry Trotz to say, hey, I had young guys cooking in the minors, whether it's Mullendijk, Wood, Kemmel, whomever. I got young guys cooking in the minors, but I'm not calling them up before they're ready. We were more competitive than we thought we were going to be in 2023, 2024. We thought maybe if we added Stamkos, Marchessault, and Brady Shea without giving up any draft capital, without giving up any prospects, that if we added those guys, we had a team that could give us a puncher's chance in the Stanley Cup playoff. That's what Barry Trotz has been saying the whole time. And I agree with it. Look at the Stanley Cup final. All these guys were drafted number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 in 2013 and 2014 and 2015. So it's going to take 10 years before the guys you draft today are in their prime. It is unfair, in my opinion, when Barry Trotz took over a club that was finally waving the white flag, which Adam had asked them to do.
That is true.
The year before, and they blew it up. And they went out and drafted Mullendijk, and they drafted Wood, and they drafted Surin, and they drafted Stiga, and they acquired Reed Schaefer, and they had Joachim Kimmel, and they had all these guys. And it is unfair to say, okay, well, Barry Trotz needs to win right now to save his job when we don't know if the guys that he drafted are any good or not. And so I think it is ridiculous, given the state of the minor leagues of the NHL, knowing what we knew of where the organization was when Trotz took over, knowing what the plan was in the minor leagues, and the fact that they have stuck to that. I think it is completely unfair to say you're not buying time by adding those guys. That's exactly what he was doing.
I agree.
He was trying to give the fans a competitive product to watch. It didn't work, but that wasn't the big story plan here.
I just want to be clear. I agree with Trotz's plan in theory. The one thing that I would have done differently is I wouldn't have signed 3 of the top 5 available free agents on the market last year. If I was just looking to buy time, I would have signed mid-tier guys as I always say, Nick Foligno or Patrick Maroon. I just think that I agree with his plan.
That is a huge difference.
I know,
Those
but
guys aren't
I
even
agree
here.
with I agree with his plan in theory. I have a hard time thinking that you sign, as I said in the previous segment, Jared. I have a hard time imagining that Barry Trotz sold Steven Stamkos on coming to Nashville without talking about, hey, I think we can win with you, versus I need you to keep Joachim Kimmel's seat warm.
But is it possible there's a nuance? I think this is what Jared is saying, that when you're selling, if I'm selling to Jared as if he's Stamkos, I say, all right, Steven, we're pretty good right now. You can help us with that. And over the course of these 4 years, we feel pretty good about these guys in the minors starting to come up and help. Now, the problem is just one guy who makes a big jump, like take Wyatt Johnston, right? Just somebody like that, who, by the way, really struggled in the post season for the Stars, but he has moved the needle for them. just one guy who pops can make a difference. And the Predators haven't had any luck there.
I do. Go ahead, Jared.
Well, I was just going to say to that, like, Adam, you're like, well, you should have signed Pat Maroon if you didn't want to, if you were trying to buy time. Again, he was trying to compete at the NHL level. But other than Bill Haslam and Herb Fritch's money, they didn't give up anything.
Which I laud them for.
Except for cap space, right?
Yes.
That is the weight.
I would have a much harder time with it if they had traded for Steven Stamkos, for example. No, the fact that all they had to do was give up money, totally fine with it. It's just a little thing that I disagree with Trotz on. I think the plan is sound in theory. I would have just gone about it a little bit differently. But I actually have a minor bone to pick with you, Jared Stellman.
Here we go.
Is this going to be about my Saros trade?
Yes. So Jared, if you missed it yesterday, Jared was talking about his trade proposal for the Predators and the Edmonton Oilers. He would trade UC Saros and a second-round pick to the Edmonton Oilers for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Stuart Skinner.
And I'd be willing to give up another second, too, in order to make the deal happen.
What?
So,
oh my God.
Wow.
So I was listening to it behind because I was at the pediatrician with my son who's not feeling well. And I caught up on it. And I texted Jared using some colorful language. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins says no to that trade. Why the hell would he do that? And Jared's response was no state income tax. My response was, would Ryan Nugent-Hopkins rather compete for the Stanley Cup on an annual basis or make a little bit more money playing for a crappy team, which the Predators are right now?
But why would the Predators want Ryan Nugent-Hopkins? If he were 23 or 24, then I think that
Jared,
would
why
be
don't you quickly explain
give
your
me the
thought
argument for
process
Nugent-Hopkins?
You have to make the salaries work out, in terms of, because Edmonton is up against it. And so you have to make the salaries work out. Nugent-Hopkins is like 5.2. Stuart Skinner is like 2.6. But if you want to make the salaries work out with some other people that don't have no moves, I'm fine with that. My thing is I believe that Edmonton's going to lose tonight, and I believe that Edmonton's going to look back at this series, and they're going to ultimately blame Stuart Skinner, and they're going to say, oh, we just don't have a goalie. And I'm thinking, I've got a goalie for you, and that being UC Saros.
But you also say, you were adamant about saying this all the time about Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene. Other teams don't want your bad players, and you think UC Saros is a bad player relative to the money that he's making.
I believe UC Saros has the reputation around the league. The reputation on Johansson and Duchene had soured. I think Saros has a reputation. I mean, for crying out loud, he just got named to the Olympic team.
Well, look,
I think Saros has a reputation that Edmonton can sell this, and most importantly to McDavid, who is a UFA after next year of, hey, we're going to fix the goaltending problem, and we're going to do it with UC Saros, who is cost controlled at 7.74. Willie talks about the cap going up all the time.
Yeah, that's
so goalies get paid more.
It's not a bad
and
contract.
So we're gonna sell that to Connor McDavid and to Leon Draisaitl, and we're gonna say get Zach Hyman back, and now we've got a goalie.
But why would you do that to get Ryan Nugent-Hopkins? He's going to be 30. He's 32.
I don't care about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Well, that's the
I
thing.
care about getting rid of UC Saros.
See, that's.
But here's the thing about
because
let me just. I'll make a statement here.
Go ahead, Willie.
If the Oilers had UC Saros playing goal and not Stuart Skinner, they'd won 3 cups by now.
Oh my God! Oh my God! No, he did not.
Okay, hold on.
I'm saying this year being one, last year being one.
Oh goodness!
And then I think the year before they would have won.
Congratulations, Willie! You just filled an hour of Jared Jones. But this is the point I want to make, Jared.
That's the difference between Skinner and Saros.
Adam, I can't get over Willie's point.
Okay.
I don't have time for your point. We got to go around the room here.
Hold on, no.
Do you agree with Willie Donick that if UC Saros was their goalie, they would have won 3 cups?
They would be going for their. I don't know
the answer
It's a little
to that.
exaggeration. They would have won at least one, and I think had another chance for one.
Yes or no, Adam?
in this game tonight.
I don't know.
Do you think UC Saros is way better than Stuart Skinner? He
This
is an
is sports
anvil.
radio,
Stuart
Adam.
Skinner
Do I
is
think
an
UC
anvil.
Saros is better than Stuart Skinner? Yes, I
He's-
think UC Saros
Stuart
is
Skinner
better than
and
Stuart Skinner.
Calvin Pickard are below average NHL goalies. They are an anvil on an
I don't know if I
otherwise
can
great
say they
You
would
need
have
to
won
have that
3.
conversation, Willie, with your partner, Chris Mason, because last year when I said Stuart Skinner sucked, he was like, he must be doing something right if he's in the cup final.
But the point about the no state income tax thing is, yes, the Panthers and the Predators have that in common.
You two are too nice to Willie, man. I mean, you guys stayed out of that.
The
hot
difference
take.
between
if I said that,
I'm
you
not
guys
the one.
are gone nuts.
I'm not the one that said let's bring back Ryan Nugent Hopkins and a couple of bags of
Give
pucks.
me a bag of pucks. I don't care.
When the Panthers were one of the worst teams in the NHL for a nearly 20-year stretch, players weren't clamoring to play in Florida just because of the no state income tax. You have to be good for that to be a true advantage. The Predators don't have that right now because they're not good.
I just can't pay attention to anything after what Willie said. And the fact that you two won't either say yay or nay tells me all I need to know about you.
I will not go as far as Willie did just there.
I admit,
I'm saying
that's
they win it.
hyperbole. Jared is rubbing off on me to say hyperbole, saying 3 cups.
Blame me.
They would have won at least one.
They would have won one
At
out
least
of
one.
the 3 that they've been in. Yes,
I
With
can't
UC
say
Soros,
3.
yes,
I can't
they
say
would have
3.
won at least once.
But I would have more confidence in UC Soros than Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard. And Stuart Skinner, by the way, in net for the Edmonton Oilers, easy for me to say, tonight as they try to stay alive in the Stanley Cup final. But Jared and Stillman and company, I'm all out of sorts here. Coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful Tuesday. Stay dry. Peace.